to navigate the day. Good morning, and welcome to Light the Tower on the Horn, 104.9, 101.9, AM 1260. We're live, local, and digital on the Horn app and at hornfm.com. My name is Craig Way. Glad to have you with us. Jeff Al is out today, tomorrow, and Monday. Jeff will be back on Tuesday. So, we'll manage through. We'll do that. We've got some things to get to on the program. Our producer, of course, is here. He would be Cameron Parker. How you doing this morning, Cam?
You're doing great, Craig. Start of the area round for high school baseball tonight, so I'm gearing up for that.
Well, good, because we're going to get a little preview from you coming up here. We're going to move our Flex 30 update up here in the program, and the reasons are numerous. One is that, to get to a little preview of that. Also, I'm going to list the names of a select group of high school football outstanding scholar athletes who will be honored on Sunday at the National Football Foundation College Football Hall of Fame's Austin chapter, our annual banquet that we have on the UT campus. And there's a collection of young men, and I know you will recognize several of the names, Cam. So we're gonna announce those names. Some of those were all Flex student athletes as well, and some of them are all state, and so we're gonna bring that up to you here in a few minutes. Also coming up on the program today, bottom of the hour, Texas men's tennis head coach Bruce Berque. We visited with Bruce back a few weeks ago when they had ascended to the number one spot in the country. They're the number one overall seed. They cruised through the weekend in the first and second round, knocking out both Texas A&M Corpus Christi and Pepperdine. Now it's on to the Sweet 16, and they play the number 14 seed North Carolina. So they're going to play them, and there might be a wrinkle or two thrown into it because of the weather, but we're going to visit with Bruce to talk about that coming up. We'll have Inconceivable a little later on this hour. In the 11 o'clock hour, Glenn Davis, who you hear every week on Mondays on Soccer Matters here on the Horn. And then, of course, he drops in on with Bucky and Aaron. Glenn will join us. And it's cool that Glenn is on our station. And it's cool that he pops on with Bucky and Aaron from time to time. They have him on. The other thing, a lot of folks don't know that Glenn Davis and I worked together quite a bit back in the mid to late 90s doing soccer. We did some soccer, and we'll share some. One of them is a very bizarre story about a trip to Monterrey, Mexico. So we'll let everybody hear that coming up. So that's going to be in the 11 o'clock hour. Also, coming up in the 11 o'clock hour, in our second hour Longhorn Notebook, Bruce Berque will join us live for our first hour Longhorn Notebook. Our second hour Longhorn Notebook, joining us live from Oklahoma City, Andrew Haynes, play-by-play voice of Texas softball. In case you didn't hear, softball's quarterfinal game against Texas Tech, the Big 12 softball tournament is getting underway right now. The first match of the first game of the day is getting underway right now. Texas is scheduled to play Texas Tech at 12:30 this afternoon. You can hear it on 105.3 The Bat, but Andrew's going to join us in the bottom of the next hour, a little preview for Texas and Texas Tech, and talk about Texas, what they're expecting from the national scene, as well as the Big 12 softball tournament is different from the baseball tournament in that it's single elimination. So lose once and you're done. And we'll visit with Andrew coming up in the second hour as well. So we've got a full plate to get to as well. And there's a lot of other things. First of all, was it a late night for you watching Lakers Warriors last night?
Not too late.
No. I know you kind of surprised me a little bit with your revelation yesterday when you said you weren't that big a Dallas Stars fan until it got to playoff time.
Yeah.
But yet you own a Tyler Seguin jersey.
I do.
So did you purchase that jersey when you were into your playoff mode? Was that the reason for that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think during the year with hockey, I mean, it's right around the time that high school football is starting to really ramp up for playoffs. So you have that. Texas football is obviously going on. You have basketball that's starting. Plus, you have other things going on. So it's more of just like, it's just there's just too much to kind of process. So hockey's, I didn't- you know how it is, Craig, growing up in Charlotte. I mean, the Hurricanes when I grew up. I mean, you had the Stahl brothers, but
Yeah,
like it
yeah.
wasn't like the Hurricanes were the thing, right? So I didn't grow up in a big hockey area, but as I got older, I started watching more and more hockey and rooting for the Stars and stuff. So it's not that I dislike hockey. It's just there's a lot going on when hockey starts. I don't really follow it too much until we get to the playoffs.
Okay, all
So
right.
I would say I'm a T-shirt fan, 100%.
Yeah, or in this case, a Jersey fan.
Yeah, just a jersey.
What? And tell me if you agree with me on this, because you grew up in Charlotte, but you were in as a permanent resident in North Carolina far more recently than myself. I grew up there. I graduated high school from there. I go back on vacation every summer. I go to the coast, and occasionally I'll make it up to Greensboro, to my area. But I don't, I didn't spend a lot of time in North Carolina once I moved out to Texas, and that would have been in the December of 1978. So Texas has been my home. I've lived more of my life in the state of Texas than in the state of North Carolina. But I did grow up there. But I always remember there was city rivalry back in the day between Greensboro and Charlotte. Less of that now, I think, because the Raleigh-Durham area has really sprouted up. So I don't know how the rest of the state took to the Panthers. I could imagine they got on board with them being an NFL team. I got the vibe that maybe they weren't as much down with the Hornets. And, of course, Shin was a terrible owner, and he moved them to New Orleans, and they had all that crazy stuff that happened. They ended up getting the Bobcats as an expansion franchise where Michael Jordan was on the front line with that. And then they recovered the name Hornets after New Orleans, of course, then took the Pelicans name. So all of that stuff happened. But and then in the case of the Hurricanes, I know Greensboro was into them because they had them the first, I think, 3 years while they were building the arena in Raleigh. But the vibe I get is that people in Charlotte probably don't pay that much attention to Raleigh and vice versa. So therefore, maybe they're not as down with the Canes, I guess.
That, and I mean, they don't even really pay attention to the Hornets, even the Bobcats, because it's a banking city, Craig. So a lot of people now have moved down there from New York or from the northern states, Michigan, Ohio. So it's just kind of a weird. You go to a Hornets game, and usually there's probably just as many visiting fans as there are home fans. It's a weird city. For the Panthers, I think they get all the support, but even then, when they play teams like Dallas or the 49ers or the Rams or more than the 49ers, it feels like there's more of those fans versus just the home fans. But I think that's just because of like more people have moved into Charlotte outside the state.
Did you like the deal I sent you that somebody sent to me, the TikTok thing about welcome to Charlotte, moving to Charlotte? The guy
I didn't get to see it.
Oh, I sent it to you and Jeff. Okay. You got to take a look at that because it basically lampoons Charlotte as the guy's just sitting there opening up can after can of Cheerwine, the soft drink for folks. I've talked about Cheerwine before. I really like it, but I don't.
Incredible.
And you miss it when you're not around it, and you can get it like at Specs. You can get it at several of the places at an elevated price now because it's an imported beverage. It's a soft drink. Cheerwine is not a wine. I've talked about this before. It's kind of a cherry. More of a cherry kind of cola version, but far more cherry than cola. And it's a soft drink that was actually developed in 1917 with cherry syrup because the corn syrup and the other syrups that you used to make soft drinks were being shipped overseas during World War I. So the guy who invented it came up with it, and he was in the state of North Carolina, happened in Salisbury, and it caught on like wildfire. And it's just been a regional soda, kind of like how Big Red is down here. It's a regional soft drink. So in this video where they're making fun of this guy, somebody moves to Charlotte, and tell me what's great about Charlotte. And he's nothing really happens here. We're banking, and we're nobody really cares, and there's mediocrity. The Panthers build up your hopes and then completely dash them, and there's, it's all this kind of stuff. And he's just sitting there opening up can after can of Cheerwine as he goes.
It's spot on. Watching it right now, it's very spot on.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured you'd enjoy
the heat.
that.
Yeah,
the heat. They say heat. It's humidity in the summertime is brutal there, so it is. It is.
This past week here, Craig, I thought I was back in Charlotte with how humid it was.
It does. One of the reasons why my dad moved to Texas in 1978 is he said you can walk out in the summertime in North Carolina and you just step outside and all of a sudden you feel it just popping up on you, the sweat, just from the humidity. So it does get like that. And I will tell you this. Last June, when the Longhorn baseball team was in Greenville, and that's an even more humid area than, say, in the Charlotte area or the Piedmont Triad where Greensboro and High Point and Winston-Salem are, or even the Research Triangle with Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill. You get out east of there about an hour and a half over there to Greenville, and it is just hot there in Pitt County over there in Greenville. And it was – and then, of course, you had all the rain that happened during the weekend. So it was like a sauna, a steam bath, and all that. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, it didn't affect the Longhorns in that final game when they had all the rain. They came out of that rain delay and put 9 on the board early against ECU and went on and won it. But it can be different. Somebody said roasted peanuts and cheerwine is awesome. You get that same response about Dr. Pepper as well. So somebody was thanking Jeff for responding to his text at 9:30 last night. A lot of people have simply forgotten to respond. Heck, I even do it to friends sometime. You really went above and beyond responding. Thank you for your time. And it's reasons like this I'll be a lifelong Horn listener. Thank you. And we'll pass that along to Jeff since he's out up until Tuesday. All right. So we've got those things on board to get to. But I want to jump into this because it's going to take me a few minutes just to get to this, because this is a really cool thing to honor area high school football players, scholar athlete nominees. So then there's, I believe, 32 of them there. So let's get to our Flex 30 update. Okay. There are several student athletes nominated from the area. Now, the way this works, this is for the National Football Foundation, the Austin chapter. And every year, and this has been happening going back over, I believe, certainly over 25, 30 years. And there is every year, area schools, coaches nominate the high school football coaches nominate one player from that group. And the area schools are then these are, somebody said a Flex ATX show in the first part of the show. Is that legal? Hey, the immortal words of Darth Sidious, the Emperor, Palpatine, I will make it legal. All of the area, the football coaches are invited to send in one player nominated. So only one can be nominated by a coach from the area schools. Only one. So of that group, we have a group of 32, and those scholar athletes will then be honored at a banquet. It'll be this Sunday. So we do that. And of that group of 32, there's another select group out of that who will receive additional scholarships, like $1,000 scholarships or $1,200 scholarships. I do not know who, because I can tell you this, it hasn't been determined yet who those winners are. But I can tell you the names of those who've been invited to the banquet, the 32 who will be there of that group. So I'm going to go in alphabetical order here, and I'm sure Cameron will recognize some of these names as we go down. And again, it's only one per school is the most you can do. So without further ado, here we are. This is the list of this group. From Aikens High School is Caleb Stever. All right, so he's the nominee from Aikens. From Austin High, the nominee is Hudson Mablis. So he is the honoree from Austin High. Next on the list is Cedar Park. From Cedar Park, the nominee is Brady Elford. Okay. And then from Cedar Ridge, you may recognize this name, Julian Mesa is the nominee from Cedar Ridge. Now, and you say, well, what qualifies them? They have to be outstanding in actually, there's 3 areas. And the way this is evaluated is you have a good part of it is basically on what they did on the football field. Also, an equal amount is what they did in the classroom. And then there's a supplementary third part for what they might have done at their school or in their community, a community service and school thing. So it's extracurricular, it's football, and it's academic as well. From Eastview High School, Patrick Maxwell, one of the scholar athletes. From Elgin, Justin Strong.
Yep.
Figured you'd know him. From Georgetown is Tucker Griffin. I think we know him. Mm-hmm. From Dripping Springs, it is Grayson Jones. From, I jumped out of my order. I want to make sure I jump back in here. Yeah. From Hendrickson, next on the list, Brian Ray. Hendrickson Hawk. From Hyde Park, the nominee is Bryce Benkendorfer. Bryce Benkendorfer from Hyde Park. And again, these are all scholar athletes who have been nominated and will be a part of the NFF banquet as well. From Hayes, the nominee is Christopher Bruce. From Bowie, the nomination is for Jake Cole. And again, these are pulling these up as I read them here, this list. From, I want to make sure I got this right here on who we're up to next, is from Lago Vista. It's Baron Colden from Lago. From Lake Travis, the nominee is Lucas Casey Moore. From Leander, the nominee is Jaden Arnold. From Lehman, the nominee is Ethan Crum. From Liberty Hill, the nominee is Carlton Schrank. From Lockhart, the Lion who is nominated is Sean McKinney. From Manor, the nominee is David Jeffrey.
All flex nomination, I believe.
Yep, absolutely. From McCallum, the nominee is J.D. Jordan. From McNeil, I know you'll recognize this name, Cam, Aaron Crow.
Yeah.
From Northeast Early College, it is, let me make sure I got this right, Noah Flemings. Right. Sometimes the sheet doesn't render right away, so I'm just making sure. I'm looking at these. I just got the list. I'm looking at the list. From Pflugerville, it's Brett Arenado. From Regents, the nominee is Tyler Quo. From Round Rock, a name that you probably will recognize, William Brown.
Yeah. Congrats to William.
Yeah. From Rouse, the nominee is Jace Mann. I think we know him well. From Stony Point, the nominee, Corey Thomas. From, and again, this is the combination of football player, outstanding football player, and student and community service. So it's a combination of all those things. From Vandegrift, didn't you guys have this young man on last night, Braden Buchanan?
We did.
Yeah. He's a nominee.
Yeah.
Braden Buchanan is the Vandegrift nominee. From Westwood, I think it's John Zybel.
Yes.
Okay. And from Travis, making sure I read these properly, Alex Cardosa. And from Wimberley, the nominee is Jack Boyle.
Okay. Good for
So,
Jack.
yeah. So, there it is. There's your those names are the names of the student athletes who achieved on the football field, in the classroom, in community service and school service as well. All of those things. And as a result of that, that group will be honored on Sunday at the National Football Foundation's and College Hall of Fame annual banquet. It's a really cool deal because all of their names will actually be listed in an area where you can see it at the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, Georgia.
That's an awesome.
Yeah. So it's great just to be part of that group, and they're all a part of that group. So that's the one from that. And those were the ones that was narrowed down to that. Of that group, there'll be some additional scholarships handed out to them for outstanding achievement, and a scholarship committee decides that, and those determinations will be made between now and Sunday, and those scholarship winners will be announced on Sunday as well. So there it is. Just wanted to congratulate those young men. All right, how about playoff baseball for this weekend?
Yes, sir. So we spent some time in Round Rock and Westlake. You want to look at 5A and 4A?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Let me plug those two games. So if you're interested in the Austin area, you could see two future Longhorns possible in the mound. Westlake, Chance Covert, they're taking on San Antonio Brandeis. First game tonight, 7 p.m. at Westlake. And then Round Rock and Reagan, once again, a top 10 matchup between both schools, 7 p.m. at Concordia University. There's going to be some really good 5A and 4A baseball. Quick, last time we had Jordan Fiera, the Georgetown Eagles baseball coach, on the show, Flex ATX podcast page. Coach Fiera, Eagles reigning defending champions in 5A. And they try again this tonight. A&M Consolidated will be first pitch, 7 o'clock. That's a good 5A matchup for you. Cedar Park taking on Medina Valley.
Medina
Valley, excuse me.
Over there in Castroville, out west of San Antonio.
6 p.m. first pitch at Cedar Park. Rouse, a great baseball program. Alamo Heights, first game. Also at Concordia. That will be tomorrow at 6 p.m. Then game 2 at Concordia as well. That's a great baseball facility. So that'll be fun for those two schools. And then some other 5A matchups. Magnolia West, who has a really good baseball program. I believe they're ranked 7th in the state. They're taking on Pflugerville, so a tough matchup for Pflugerville. But first game Friday at Eastview, 6 p.m. And then Elgin, we just mentioned Justin Strong, also an all-flex guy. Congrats to the Strong family. Baseball-wise, Elgin, who finished second in Georgetown District. They're taking on Lake Belton. First game will be tonight at Lake Belton, 7 p.m. Game 2 tomorrow at Elgin. And then we mentioned Georgetown and A&M Consolidated. How about Austin McCallum? They're still going strong. They're taking on Lake Creek tonight. That'll be at Mumford, which I have no idea where that's at, Craig.
Don't know where Mumford is.
Yeah.
Mumford is one of those, this is one of those anomalies. I talked about this a few months ago. When you have football playoff games and they get into the playoffs and the two coaches are deciding where they want to have the game, first and foremost, they got to find a facility that works for them, that the turf, whether it's field turf or natural grass, works. Got to be big enough for a lot of fans. And then the other consideration is it's got to be in an area that is kind of halfway where they can get it. Basketball, you just need a good-sized gym, kind of halfway into it. Baseball, you want to get a decent ballpark. You want to get one that if you get some rain, it'll take care of it, whether it's field turf or whatever, that you can get to it. Mumford is a unique place because it is literally out in the middle of nothing, and it's kind of between Rockdale and College Station. Okay, it's on Farm to Market 50, and here's this school out in the middle of nowhere. Small classification school, doesn't have football, but they have basketball and they have baseball, and there are basketball playoff games that are played in Mumford, and there are baseball. But it's a good baseball facility, so that's why it's a good. Who's playing there at Mumford?
Let me double check.
Okay,
McCallum and Lake Creek.
Well, see, that makes sense. Montgomery, Lake Creek.
Yeah.
So that's a good halfway point. As somebody points out, says Mumford has one of the best baseball and softball stadiums in the area. It does.
And with the rain coming in this week, Craig, there's a good chance that we're going to have some games postponed, possible doubleheaders on Saturday, and you can't play on Sunday, of course, because of high school rules. So maybe some games may be wrapped up even Monday. So you're looking at spots that hopefully have artificial turf, because there's a lot of great stadiums where they have natural grass. And these storms coming in, who knows what's going to happen?
If they absorb it well enough. MJ from Hearn said, who's playing over there? Because Hearn's not that far from it. It's McCallum and Montgomery Lake Creek.
Yes.
So there you go. And Lake Creek, by the way, is one of those programs that's really come on in recent years. It's really in all sports. It's a relatively new school, and in all sports. They had a good run. They've had a good run in football last couple of years. Basketball and baseball, they've got a good program. So there it is. There's your Flex 30 update. All right, up next, we'll talk some Texas men's tennis with the number 1 seeded Longhorns, as we'll visit with head coach Bruce Burke when we continue to Light the Tower on the Horn, 104.9, 101.9, AM 1260. We're live, local, and digital on the Horn app and at hornfm.com. We were just talking about high school baseball playoff games. Of course, we're just around the corner from the college baseball playoff games going on. The Big 12 tournament is starting today. They're streaming their telecast through ESPN+. The question is, are you all set up for your home entertainment setup to watch, whether you're talking about streaming or anything else? Well, Tom McKay and Audiovisual Consultations can help take care of that. They can get you set up the way you want it. They have the equipment, the expertise, the knowledge, and the vision to work with you on the vision you have for your home entertainment system. They will also work within your budget as well, because Tom is not raising his prices like so many others. He's staying competitive with all of that. Check them out on the web at avconsultations.com. Then give Tom and his staff a call, 512-255-8678. That's 512-255-8678. Let Tom McKay and Audiovisual Consultations help you realize the home entertainment system of your dreams. This is Light the Tower on the Horn. Craig Way with you here on this Thursday morning. Hope you're doing all right. You know, the Texas men's tennis team is doing all right. Number 1 seed, and swept through their first and second round matches, which brings us to our Longhorn Notebook. And with that, they won 4-0 over Texas A&M Corpus Christi on Saturday. Came back on Sunday and won 4-0 over Pepperdine. So it's on to the round of 16. or as they like to say in basketball parlance, I guess you could say in tennis parlance as well, the Sweet 16. Texas hosting North Carolina and scheduled, and I will leave it at that for the moment, for the Texas Tennis Center. More on that coming up as we visit with head coach Bruce Berque, who joins us on the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina Hotline. Bruce, I appreciate the time. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great, and I always appreciate the chance to be on and talk Texas tennis.
Well, it's great to have you, and I know you're very pleased with what you've seen. You know, the layman might look at it and say, okay, They won the Big 12 Conference regular season title, went in as the number 1 seed. They won 4-0 over Corpus. They won 4-0 over Pepperdine. They're on to the Sweet 16. Everything is just great and all this. I know coaches look at things a little differently, schematically, pragmatically. Would it be safe to say that your team has performed very, very well, but you as a coach and your student athletes, you're always looking at how you can be a little bit better, even though you didn't drop one during your matches, drop a set or drop a match to any of the opponents for either A&M Corpus or Pepperdine?
Yeah, I'd say that's absolutely safe to say. A lot of times in these postseason matches, you're playing to 4 points, and there's a total of 7 points on the board. So sometimes a 4-0 can look extremely dominant and be closer than the score would indicate. And we were down or even in a couple of the other remaining matches against Pepperdine, who's a very strong team. And the depth in college tennis, especially on the men's side this year, is very high. So we know that any team, just about any team we play from this point on, is more than capable of beating us if they play well and we don't show up. So we're leaving nothing to chance. And the biggest reason for our success this year is that our guys have treated every match the same and been ready to play. So we're hoping to do the same thing this week, but we know there's always little things we can do to improve.
You and I have had this conversation before about, and I hear coaches in any sport, football, basketball, baseball, tennis, track and field, golf, whatever, I hear coaches say the best teams are the ones that are player-led. So it sounds like what you're talking about is when you say that your guys have taken everything, every match the same with the same amount of seriousness. Is that a good way to describe it? That this is truly a player-led team, even though you're the head coach and you've got a coaching staff, but to have a player-led team is the best kind of team?
Yeah, absolutely. I always have felt that, and it seems like leadership qualities and having groups that are able to hold each other accountable are not as common as they used to be, but we're definitely fortunate to have that kind of group this year, and they're an extremely close team, but they're not so close that they're afraid to be honest with each other. And I think that comes with experience too. Another way to put it is, I think we help them come up with the themes that they want to focus on each year, and they've done a good job of that. But it's also really nice to see not only when players are buying into the message that the coaches are giving, but when they're also selling it to each other. That's fun for us, and that's when we can sit back and watch them lead and grow as teammates and leaders, and then we can focus a little bit more on the X's and O's and trying to get them better technically and tactically so they can perform well. But I definitely feel like we are in that position this year.
Visiting with Bruce Berque, Texas men's tennis coach here on Light the Tower on the Horn. It's easy for a lot of folks to gravitate to seeing what your guys are doing in singles, but I'm always curious to get your thoughts on your doubles and who's the guys that get the doubles points for you as well, and because it's such a big part of it earlier with the way things started out. Is it a real tone setter for your guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is for all teams. Everyone wants to fight hard to win that doubles point and get an early lead in the match. And I always tell our guys we want to play like it's the most important point in the match, and the most important thing that exists right now is trying to win that doubles point. But then when it's over, we have the opposite approach: win or lose. We say that's only 1 out of 7 points. So. But it is nice to get ahead in the doubles. And I know that's going to be one of the challenges this weekend, because North Carolina doubles has always been a strength of theirs. And I do think we're playing well and have steadily improved in our doubles this year, but it's going to be a big challenge against North Carolina.
Would it be safe to say also that with a group like Elliot Spizzirri and Cleve Harper, you've got a doubles group that you feel is good enough to knock off just about anybody?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Cleve was an NCAA doubles champion last year with Richard Ciamaro, who graduated. And Elliot has been a top 10 doubles player in the past with multiple partners, and he's a U.S. Open junior doubles champion. So they definitely know what they're doing, and they're ranked 3 in the country for a reason. But doubles is a bit of a crapshoot these days because you only play one set, and it's no ad scoring, so the margins are super thin. And North Carolina in particular is well coached in doubles, and they've got a lot of big servers, and that can be a big difference maker. We don't have a lot of overwhelming power in servers on our 3 doubles teams. We do fine in that department. So we need to really rely on our energy and our discipline with our tactics to get the job done. And so I think it's going to be an interesting matchup in doubles.
In jumping to your singles, obviously, I guess it only makes sense to start with Elliot with what he's been able to do for you, and him and Nevin Aramili as well. Both of those guys, I guess, make a big difference for you with what they've been doing on the court for you. And then also, I wanted to get your thoughts on Siem Wolde and what he's done and the progress he's made. I know you mentioned him at some point and how far he's come as a player as well, a young man from California, and what he's done and the progress that he's made over his time at UT.
Yeah, for sure. Siem's an extremely good athlete, and he kind of made his mark pretty early in his freshman year and had some really good wins and had some pretty big moments. Since then, he's had some flashes of brilliance and then some low moments too on the court, and struggled with, some off-court challenges also. Last year was probably his worst of his first 3 seasons, I guess. But this year, and it really started after last season, he really dedicated himself in the summer to trying to mature as a guy who goes about his craft and appreciates the opportunities he has every day. And he's really done that. And so he's been much more consistent this year with his daily approach, and also with taking care of his body. And we've seen the results on the court. He's been much more consistent in his play. And when he's going right, that's a massive strength for us because he's got a different kind of game. He takes the ball super early and comes to net a lot. He's quick for a guy who's about almost 6'3", 6'4". He's super quick. He moves well, and he's very aggressive in taking the ball early. So, and when he's right, he's emotionally like a fire plug. I'd say him and Cleve Harper, can really give us a big boost emotionally on the court. So Siem's been a major reason for the success we've had this year, and he's won some big matches. Another
guy, Bruce, that I've been kind of fascinated with seeing how he's had to turn things back around is your sophomore Pierre-Yves Bailly. When here's a guy had to miss the entire fall due to injury, and then come back and really jump back into it and do a good job. And it looks like he's recovered nicely and really just worked hard.
He has. He's a very hard. We've got a team full of hard workers, but Pierre is definitely one of them. He came in as an international student from Belgium in January of last year, which is really not easy to do. It's because you're jumping right into the dual match season, and when you're coming from another country, you really most often have no idea what this is all about, and so it's a whole different kind of pressure because guys typically aren't used to playing for a team. But I thought he did really well last year. He had some big wins for us. And then he struggled with an injury on his wrist late last year, like many of our guys did, and couldn't really play throughout the whole summer. And in the fall, he didn't really play. He started practicing midway through the fall. And, he's had a really good season. I think he's won 8 of his last 10 matches, and he's had a few big ones. He clinched our Big 12 regular season championship against a really good player from TCU. And he's had some big wins. He also clinched our win over Ohio State at the National Indoors when they were number 1 in the country. So yeah, he's definitely dedicated himself like many of our guys have, and he's on a good path, a good trend right now.
This is going to sound.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I started to say this. This is going to sound like a little bit of an unusual type of question, I guess. But for a layman, and we just got through talking about Pierre, he had his match unfinished. Also, Elliott had his. Spizzirri had a match unfinished. Aramili had his match unfinished because your group just wrapped it all up, and his Spizzirri's match had moved to a third set, and Pierre's match was trailing when play stopped. Armilli's match was trailing when play stopped. When that happens, but it's all about the team first, and you've talked about it. What are the conversations like with you with guys who might have been trailing in the match, but the time it ends up being moot at the end because the team finished the job and did it, about what it's like going into the next thing, what their mindset is like when they come off a match that didn't get finished, but they were trailing at the time, and what their approach is when they come off a match and get ready for the next one?
Yeah, it really depends on the circumstances of the match and how they were playing at the time. Tennis is a weird team sport because there are team themes that we have each day, and there are general things you can observe about how a team competes and helps each other during the matches that we address as a team. But after each match, win or lose, good play or bad play, the coaches are having individual conversations with each player in each position, really. We've got 9 matches going on in each dual match, and each one can have a completely separate identity. So we really need to break down what's happened specifically in each match. I think the guys are, at this time of year, the number one focus is on the team, so everyone's happy that we won. But then we do need to have a conversation with each player to see where they can do better for the next match, and then also if they played well, then to make sure they understand what they were doing well and how they can stay focused on the next one. So it's a lot of individual conversations. In this case, Elliot, I think they were all fine. Maybe a little frustration if they were trailing, and sometimes that even helps them. I think someone like Pierre helps them when he doesn't perform up to his capability, and I know he doesn't think he did in this last match. That kind of fuels him a little bit for the next one. He gets pretty determined because nobody wants to let down their team, and I think in some ways he felt like he did in that match. And I would predict that he's going to be ready to put a great effort out in this next one.
That's exactly where I was going with that, about the motivation that came. Okay, give folks an idea. You mentioned a little bit about North Carolina and how historically they've done well in doubles. What kinds of challenges do the Tar Heels present for your team?
Well, a couple things. One, they're always good. They're well coached, and they've been a perennial top of the ACC team, and it wasn't too long ago that they reached the finals of NCAA. So we know they're a good program. They have 3 lefties in their lineup, which is a little unusual. So we don't have any lefties on our team, so that's a little bit of a challenge because typically if we have a guy that's getting ready to play a lefty, then we'll have them practice with the lefty on our team, but we don't have that opportunity this year. So they have 3 lefties. They have some really big servers on the team, which is especially helpful for them in doubles. And, should our match have to go indoors, I think they typically play very good tennis indoors. And we're fine indoors. We reached the finals of the national indoors, but I think that would be a strength of theirs, is playing indoors. So those are the, aside from just being a good team and a good competitive team, they've got some lefties that we don't often see, and they've got some big servers on the team that play well, especially indoors. So we're hoping weather cooperates and we can play this match outside, but if not, we'll be road tripping it to Steiner Ranch and welcoming whoever can make the trip.
Bruce, that's what I was going to mention next, is the flexibility that your guys need to have in case the weather doesn't cooperate. And we've all seen the forecast for what could happen this weekend, and we could get some heavy rain. At what point does the NCAA, or in consultation with you and others, make that point? I mean, is it all about looking at forecasts? Is it steady rain going on? What's been your experience with how far they go in NCAA tournament play before they decide, okay, there's an indoor option, we're going to shuttle over, we're going to go out to Steiner Ranch and play this indoors? Like you said, you had to do it before, and I know there's been other matches, men's and women's, in the past in the NCAA tournament that had to shift indoor as well. What's the mindset on when the decision, or how they go about the decision of deciding, other than just what the forecast might be, about when you decide we've got to take this inside?
Well, their priority is definitely to try to play the match outside if at all possible. If you have an indoor backup, which we do, then you're not allowed to push it to the next day to play it outside. So this match is going to be played on Saturday regardless. So other than that, they're going to be looking at, are the courts wet or dry, and what the forecast is. I guess the other factor is that they have 2 matches to play at this site because the women are playing too. So perhaps for our match, they could have waited a little bit longer if there was just one match to play. But really, if there's a window in the day, they could potentially even move the matches earlier if they thought that would help. I don't think that's going to help. So how long they're going to wait, it's really dependent on the circumstance. But if it's hopeless, they won't wait very long at all. If it's raining and the forecast is for rain all day, pretty heavy chance, then they're going to just move them in. But if there's a potential of a window to get the match outside, then they're going to wait. So I can't really give you a simple answer for that, but I could just tell you the priority is to play outside. And then before a decision is made here, they have to be in consultation with the people at the NCAA to make sure that, there's every reasonable effort to play the match outside.
It is scheduled for outside of the Texas Tennis Center, Saturday, 3 o'clock, Texas against North Carolina in the NCAA round of 16. Bruce, it's always a pleasure to visit with you. I appreciate you taking the time, and best of luck to you this weekend. And let's look forward to a visit on down the road for Nationals.
All right, I hope so. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. Thank you, Bruce. All right, that's Bruce Berque, Texas tennis coach, and the Texas men in action. And again, if they have to move it to indoors, they'll go out to Steiner Ranch. But I think he made the good point in saying that there is always going to be every possible effort made to play the match outside if the weather cooperates. And, it's that same thing is, what could be affecting the women's tennis match, obviously. Longhorn baseball scheduled against San Jose State. They have a 2:30 first pitch on Saturday. So there's there's a lot to be contested out there. Baseball does not have that option that tennis has about being able to move it indoors. At least with baseball, it is a non-conference series. So if they wound up having to shorten the series, at least it's not damaging in terms of what the conference considerations are. You hope you can play it all, but we all know the forecast is rather ominous for the weekend. So, and that's why, Cameron, you mentioned with several high school baseball playoff series beginning tonight. That's a good thing tonight when you can still play.
Yeah, tonight for sure can get in, but for Texas baseball, Craig, it's looking a little ominous this weekend.
I know, absolutely. First game tomorrow night, scheduled for 6:30, Saturday, 2:30, Sunday, 1 o'clock. They're having to make changes with the Big 12 softball tournament. Texas was to have played Texas Tech at 3 o'clock this afternoon. That has now been moved up to 12:30 there in Oklahoma City at Hall of Fame Stadium. And coming up next hour, at the bottom of the hour, we'll check in live with Andrew Haynes there at the Hall of Fame Stadium in Oklahoma City and get his thoughts on how it looks and Texas softball getting ready. So we'll do that coming up next hour. Also in between time, Glenn Davis, host of Soccer Matters here on the Horn, and of course, outstanding national and international soccer broadcaster, will join us early in the 11 o'clock hour. So with regard to baseball, D. Fry on the line asking, does a cancellation this weekend help or hurt our RPI? I don't think it hurts. I don't know that it necessarily helps. I think Texas is 24 in the RPI. David Pierce made a good point about this the other night after the win over UTA. It talked about at the time, I think San Jose State might have been 133 in the RPI. If you're inside of 150 and you play a team whose RPI is inside of 150 and you beat them, you might not help yourself that much, but you certainly don't hurt. So you can hurt yourself if you're playing somebody in the 300s or the upper 200s. You can really hurt your RPI even if you win, especially at home. But that won't be the case if you're playing a team like that, say 133 or whatever in the RPI, as long as you win. Now, if you lose, it can hurt you. But if the games are canceled, I don't think it's going to hurt them that much. I don't think it'll hurt them at all. It may not help them much, but I don't think much will happen out of that. To the texter asked, they cut the song that just played, always hear during the baseball broadcast as well. That is Dark Star by Crosby, Stills, and Nash, their version. Cam asked me if I wanted that version or the Grateful Dead version there, but I've always liked the CSNY version.
I should have known because that's a rejoin on some Texas baseball games. So I should have known when I asked that it would have been CSN. I asked you if you were a deadhead. You said not really.
Not really. No, I'm not a deadhead at all. I don't dislike their music. There's some that I do like. I've never been crazy about, and some of their stuff does wind up, say, as being in classic rock or yacht rock, and that's pretty much been my drift on music. But no, I don't dislike Grateful Dead, but I just happen to like the CSN version better, the Crosby, Stills, Nash. Somebody asked, does the game in Mumford, does that start tonight? We're getting a lot of questions about Mumford here. Cam, folks want to know about Mumford. Can they get over there? And that this was MJ from Hearn who was playing in Mumford, and when he said I missed it, it was McCallum and Montgomery Lake Creek.
Yeah, all 3 games will be at Mumford starting today at 4:30. So game 1 at 4:30 today, 4:30 tomorrow, and then game 3, if necessary, 11 a.m. So yes, you can get out and watch it at Mumford today.
See, MJ from Hearn.
Get out there.
Take that Farnham Market Road back through Blackjack and cut across. You can probably get over there pretty easy, I would imagine. So there we go. Somebody asked, are there any games at San Marcos Stadium? I guess maybe they mean Bobcat Ballpark. I didn't see any listed.
No listed, but San Marcos is playing Lake Travis this week. They'll be playing at Dripping Springs, however.
Okay, so that's out at Drip. Somebody pointed out the Hall of Fame defensive tackle John Randall is from Mumford. He played at Hearn.
Okay.
But he was from Mumford because, like I said, there's no football over there.
Yeah.
So there you go. All right. Up next, it is inconceivable when we continue with Light the Tower on the Horn. 1049, 1019, AM 1260. We're live, local, and digital on the Horn app and at hornfm.com. So here we are getting closer and even closer to possible heavy rains this weekend. And if you're worried about your roof and thinking maybe it's time to get a new roof, well, our friends at Divided Sky Roofing and Solar can handle that. We all know they do great roofs. They're also a full-service solar company. So as we prepare to get ready and to move into our hottest season, and that's when the higher power bills start arriving, why not be prepared and save money this summer with one of those new Timberline solar shingle roofs if you need a new roof? Or maybe you already have solar. Maybe you got solar panels or a different type of solar roof. But if you don't have a backup battery, then you could be wasting money. With a backup battery, you're able to use all of the power you make instead of giving it back to the power company. And the batteries are now covered by the Inflation Reduction Act. So you get that tax credit, and we can certainly all use that. John Hardy and his staff are solar experts. They can repair and service your existing solar system. Those other roofers that you hear are just selling you a solar roof. Divided Sky Roofing and Solar can repair and service your existing solar system. Really and truly, they're a true resource, and they can help extend the life of your system. And we're talking about guys who are master electricians. The crew there are all NABCET certified. That's the solar version of being a master plumber. So why not trust your roofing and solar needs to the experts, our friends at Divided Sky Roofing and Solar? The number is 512-995-ROOF. It's DEC license number 37397. And you can check them out on the web at dividedskyAustin.com. You know, one of our very loyal listeners and texters finds it absolutely inconceivable, Cam, that we can run down the playoff schedule and not mention those Taylor Ducks.
Yeah.
Because they're playing the Robinson Rockets, who are perennially very strong. Peyton Powell, being from Robinson, played on there. In fact, Tom Barfield and I called Peyton Powell's final high school game, a playoff series between Robinson and Sweeney a few years back when he was catcher for the team. But you did a little checking. So Game 1 is tonight?
Yes.
Correct?
Against Hutto.
In
at
Hutto.
Hutto. Against Robinson at Hutto, excuse me.
So the Taylor Robinson series begins tonight with Game 1 in Hutto, and then Game 2
at Waco High.
At Waco High. Okay. All right.
And Game 3 would be back at Hutto, time TBD.
Okay. All right. So there you go. I'm getting a text also. I'd sent it out there. Waco ISD Athletic Complex, from what I'm hearing from our good friend Tom Barfield, letting us know there. So there it is. He said, y'all are just going to keep not showing Taylor some love. No, we're showing the Ducks some love there. So there it is tonight in Hutto. So in other words, what they're doing is neutral sites, neutral homes, because Hutto just down Highway 79 from Taylor. And, of course, in the Waco ISD, just up the road from Robinson. So there it would be. Does it say where Game 3 would be played, if necessary?
At Hutto.
Okay, they'd go back to Hutto for Game 3 on Saturday.
Time is TBD.
Yeah, okay. And then, of course, with the weather being what it is, that could be inconceivable. But for the moment, we go to inconceivable. Start off with some, we always like to mention some food stuff. Are you a Waffle House guy? Do you like Waffle House?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's only a couple in this area. There's the one out by the airport and the one there off 290.
I've never been the one here. My rule is Waffle House. It's kind of just don't go to Waffle House unless you're in the South. Is my rule.
Started in Georgia. Yeah. They're all throughout the South there.
It's like I don't go to Bojangles in Florida. I'm not going to go to Waffle House in Texas.
Well, Bojangles is a Charlotte operation, right? Yeah. It really is. Anyway, there's a couple that went to Waffle House, and they had the money to pay their check, but they kind of offered, we hear that, if you don't have the money to pay your tab, you have to wash dishes. What if we wanted to wash dishes instead of paying our tab? We have the money. What if we wanted to wash? And this particular Waffle House, they said, okay, you can do it.
No way.
So there's a TikTok video of a couple washing and stacking dishes. And she says, I swear, Waffle House workers are some of the most laid-back people. Her name is Victoria. And the text overlay in the video is, when you don't want to pay your tab, so you ask the manager if you can do the dishes and clean the restaurant. So it's now a viral clip. So, yeah, there it is. It happened at the Waffle House location in Missouri. So, by the way, Missouri ranks 29th on a list ranking the most stressed states. So maybe there's some stress going on at the Waffle House. So they offered to do it. I said, yeah, sure. Why not? Since we're talking about shopping and paying for things, this is another TikTok video where a woman is urging people to make sure to check your receipts before you leave a store, any store. In her case, it was a Walmart in Shreveport, Louisiana. And she works in a digital creator who works in health and wellness, uploaded a video to TikTok claiming she was charged $150 for 2 bananas at a Walmart in Shreveport. And she showed a receipt to support the story. She said, please check your receipts before you leave the store. So how does that happen? She paid, there was 27 items she purchased, and it totaled $316.54 when she checked out of the Walmart last Saturday. I walked all the way out of the store to my car, almost to my car, and I'm saying, wonder what I paid. I didn't even look, and I'm like, why is this so high? I didn't hardly buy anything. So she kept looking and saw the bananas were $150.
I feel like you would look at the price before you check out, right? That's what I do.
You're looking at it on the readout, right? To see
watching it go up and go up. feel like the jump from $32 to what's it, $320 because it's $150 each for a banana. I feel like that would maybe set some alarms going off in your mind.
It would draw your attention. Like somebody, TikTok commenter wrote, it must be nice not to have to look at the total. I always be biting my nails praying I have enough.
Same.
So anyway, she got refunded off of it. She walked back in and said, hey, I know bananas are good, but, hey, come on. 150? No, we're not. You can't do that.
Inflation's really getting out of hand.
Correct? Yeah. It's gotta be. Okay. You may have heard a story about a year ago about a woman who from Texas who had a bag lost from Allegiant Airlines. Who hasn't flown Allegiant at one point and had that happen to them? But
why are you checking bags on Allegiant, Frontier, Spirit?
There you go.
That's my first question.
Well, and here's the other thing. Not only did she lose her bag, it had a waterproof prosthetic leg in it while she was flying to San Diego. The woman's bag was later found at an airport in Provo, Utah with somebody else's name on it. Well, it's happened again. Happened in St. Louis. He was flying American. He was flying from Indianapolis to Charlotte on his way home to St. Louis, and he said, I had a special-made leg. I put it in my suitcase. I put the sticker on it that says fragile. I gave it to the young lady at American Airlines when I was checking in. When I get to the St. Louis airport, they roll me downstairs to baggage claim. I'm sitting there waiting for my luggage to come off. It never comes off. He followed all the American Airlines delayed or damaged baggage protocols, verified what was missing, submitted a claim. He eventually received a reimbursement check for a little more than $600. The leg cost $26,000.
Sheesh.
So he's hired an attorney to negotiate on his behalf. And he said, it's a problem. He said, anybody that's had a prosthetic leg understands what I'm saying when I say when you find the one that works, that's the one you want to hold on to. So, yeah.
If you're traveling, Craig, and this is advice for everybody, get those Apple tracker things that you can put into your luggage, put it in, and that way if you lose it, you know where it's at.
Yeah, you can track where it is. Fran Frischel was telling me about how he had done that and found his in LaGuardia. Finally, we got a couple animal stories. Did you see, you're a dog person, right? Yeah. Did you see you won Best in Show at Westminster?
I heard Chad talk about in the crap bag.
Okay, all right. It's a petite Basset Griffon.
Okay.
All right. What I thought was really cool is his name is Buddy Holly.
Okay.
So, nice. So he won. So that happened. He was Best in Show at that. And then finally, I would say where else but Oklahoma, but somebody could say Florida, whatever. But this particular story, police officers in Oklahoma rushed to a scene of a person crying for help. And they were looking, and they couldn't find the individual. Officers David Sneed and Neil Story, this is in Enid, Oklahoma, initially received a report from a concerned member of the public that someone could be heard yelling for help in the area. So upon arriving on the scene, the officers heard the faint cries of someone yelling in the distance. I think it's a person. There's a person, said Officer David Sneed, began running toward a distinct yell for help. And they realized as they got over to find the person in distress was actually a goat. A very upset goat. The farmer who belonged to later said had been separated from one of his friends. He was really upset and was separated from his kind, and the goat was crying for help. He said, sure enough, said one of the officers, we were walking over here, and I'm like, that's a person. Even from a long distance, it sounds like, help, help, help.
There's a Gerald and a goat joke in there somewhere that Jeff Howe would make.
It's a good thing he's not here.
I wouldn't make.
Good thing he's not here today. All right.
Always Enid. It's always Enid, Oklahoma.
It's a thank you, gentlemen. Your swift actions are appreciated by all. So the Enid Police Department, all in all, you really can't say it was based that bad of a call is what they actually tweeted out there. Upset goat. Goat's okay now. All right. It's first hour of the program. Coming up, we'll visit with Glenn Davis, host of Soccer Matters, and an old friend. We'll have a couple of stories to share. Also, We'll check in, find out if things are on schedule for that Big 12 softball tournament for Texas. They're supposed to play at 12:30 this afternoon, which you can hear on 105.3 The Bat beginning at 12:15. Andrew Haynes will join us coming up around the bottom of the hour to talk about it as well. That's next when we continue with Light the Tower on the Horn, 104.9, 101.9, AM 1260. We're live, local, and digital on the Horn app and hornfm.com. Second hour of Light the Tower on the Horn. Craig Way with you. Jeff Howe out today, tomorrow, and Monday. He'll be back in on Tuesday. Our thanks to Bruce Burke, Texas men's tennis coach, joining us last hour. Longhorns in the Sweet 16. Texas will host North Carolina in the round of 16. Again, scheduled for Saturday afternoon. If it's too inclement with the rain, they'll move it inside across over to Steiner Ranch and play over at the tennis center over at Steiner Ranch. So that'll be happening over there, either at home at the Texas Tennis Center over there. At the bottom of the hour coming up, Andrew Haynes checks in from Oklahoma City. Texas softball supposed to start play today at 12:30 in the Big 12 Conference Tournament. They had to move games up because expected inclement weather. So we'll check in with Andrew coming up in the bottom of the hour. But I want to go to the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline. First of all, one cleanup item from the Specs text line. I had a couple people weigh in, including my son, who lives over in the Pflugerville area now, who lets me know, and others did as well, there's a newer location of Waffle House. It's on Dessaw in Pflugerville. So that's good to know.
You'll pass it coming back from Elgin, going towards Round Rock.
Not not the one on 290. There's one on Dessaw Road.
If you take the cheap route where you don't take the toll road,
right,
back, then you'll pass it.
Okay, all right. Victor said it's Dessaw near Parmer. That's the one you're talking about. Okay, said it's pretty new. All right, so there, for you Waffle House fans, there you should go. Make mine scattered, smothered, and covered there if you get that on that. All right. Last night, Austin FC won its U.S. Open Cup match over New Mexico United 2-0. So they move on to the round of 16. Our good friend, the host of Soccer Matters on the Horn on Monday nights, and the guy that I've known for over 20, close to 30 years, Glenn Davis, joins us on the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline. GD, how are you?
CW, more Waffle Houses. By the way, this is my first cap on Light the Tower. And I do want to say you're one of the best guys. We meet people throughout the world in television and radio. You're one of the best ever and a wonderful personality. So thank you for having me on. I'm ready to go.
Hey, it's great to visit. And I got the big smile on the face when you started doing Soccer Matters. Love listening to the program. Brought to you by the Daspit Law Office. So it's good to let folks know about that. And you get in you have always, since the time I first met you in the mid-'90s, you always had the global view of things. You're sitting there telling me in those early days about what was going on in Serie A. You're sitting there talking about what was going on in the English Premier League, what was going on in the Bundesliga. You were in tune with that at way on back in the day. I've seen you do international soccer back when Fox was doing it on this, and then of course having you, and you were always such a huge champion for MLS right from the start when we were doing Dallas Burn games together. Now FC Dallas, but back in the day when we were doing that and doing the old Dallas Cup tournament there, the youth tournament there, the huge international youth tournament over at Lake Highlands. So we go back a ways, and it's always held, I know the international game of it has always held a special spot for you, hasn't it?
Should I apologize for all that talk for back then? You somehow survived it. I could apologize and send you reparations if you'd like. But look, I've always had that perspective. I grew up in New Jersey. I was going to all the New York Cosmos games. And, my upbringing in soccer was in ethnic areas. So that's where I got a taste of that. But, when you're bringing up the days of the Dallas Burn and the Cotton Bowl, those were some fantastic days. I mean, when Hugo Sanchez was there and the draw that was at the Cotton Bowl back then, it did have an international feel to it, But look, it's been a passion my whole life. It's a game I love. I played it at the professional level. I was lucky enough to run a youth club for many years and get into the teaching side of it. So it is a pure passion, and we see that passion now carried over in cities all over the country, including Austin right now.
It's interesting. You brought up Hugo Sanchez, and we did a match, and I know you'll remember this, a match for the then Dallas Burn again, as we said, now they're FC Dallas, back in that first year. And they were and they had a match, and I want to say it was against San Jose, but I can't remember exactly. But this speaks to it. It was the other match, Mexico, I think, against El Salvador, And so there were 35,000 people in the stadium that day. And we have wonderful, wonderful stadiums now where you broadcast regularly over in Houston, where obviously where Q2 is. It's state of the art. There's great stadiums all around MLS. They are of a more compact variety. Now, it creates a fabulous environment, but other than when you and I have done matches at the Rose Bowl when they played the Galaxy, and even the 31,000-seater there in San Jose at Spartan Stadium was a neat environment, but we've kind of had to move away from that, haven't we? MLS had to move away from that to help grow the game by not trying to play it in such cavernous facilities that even if you had 25,000, it looked like a drop in the bucket in a 75,000-seat bowl.
Yeah, it was a growth of the infrastructure of the league. And, I mean, it's also how you control your revenue streams. But, yeah, these are incredible temples. And I think if we think about the rest of the world and you tune into the Copa Libertadores in South America or I've called games in Central America in places like Honduras and at the Cuscatlán Stadium in El Salvador. I mean, these things are falling apart, and people are going in there 35, 40, 50, 60,000 people to watch games sitting on concrete. So I think sometimes we do need to reflect about where it is in the rest of the world, because a lot of times we're force-fed the beauty of the Premier League, the perfectly manicured, pristine fields. But that's not how the rest of the world is in, Eastern Europe necessarily, South America, Central America. So we have to appreciate what we have here. And the infrastructure and the intimate environment and the ability to put as many people in the building as Austin FC continues to sell games out is pretty remarkable. I mean, professional soccer in my era in the 80s, you're playing in high school stadiums or, a big crowd would be 13 or 14,000 in the Gator Bowl, which, doesn't look too big, and or the Pontiac Silverdome, which doesn't even exist anymore. So it's all amazing. I do pinch myself every time I go into a stadium now.
Interesting. All right, so you were there at Dynamo Stadium last night for their match. Austin FC, of course, beat New Mexico United. For folks who are still a little bit in the dark about this, they might say, okay, wait a minute. Now, I'm just kind of getting into MLS now, and what's this? This is a tournament where they're playing teams that aren't even in MLS. It's like a AAA team they're playing. I mean, you and I go back to days when we saw the Dallas Burn lose to the Rochester Raging Rhinos. So, I mean, it happens in U.S. Open Cup because you have good clubs that come in even though they might not be MLS teams.
Kind of the beauty of it. This is a big win last night for Austin. It's a David versus Goliath thing. Look, if you're New Mexico last night and you came into Q2 Stadium, what an experience for your players. It's something you take back into your league play. They're in the USL Championship, which is the tier below Major League Soccer. But I think for Austin FC last night, for a start, I mentioned at the beginning of this year on the radio, I said, this is going to be a different year for Austin FC. It's going to be very difficult to replicate what happened last year. But getting a win in the Open Cup last night was important. You've now scored goals in the last 3 games. You haven't had a win since the end of April, I believe. So to get a win, you're getting Cascante back now. Rodney Redis is starting to feel his way around Major League Soccer and produce better performances. Rigoni was involved in one of the goals last night. So I think you have to look at this as a step forward and a continued step forward, and that's how coaches position it. But let's make one thing clear, and I don't mean this in any derogatory fashion. Major League Soccer is, without question, as far as I'm concerned, the most forgiving / confusing league in the world. Because, the reason I say that is and you hear coaches say this all the time. Well, there's the first phase of the season, which is now, and every team pretty much in the league has got problems they've got to solve. Then there's the second period where you can enhance your team with the transfer window in the summer. And then there's the third segment of the year is, when you're driving for the playoffs, come August, September, right? So it is forgiving. You have time to solve problems. I don't like that about the league because I think it leads to less consequence early in the year. But it is fact, and you have to kind of play the game the way it's dealt to you. And again, 18 out of 29 teams make the playoffs. I'm sorry, if you don't make the playoffs in this year, it's a bad season. it's a bad season. If you don't make the playoffs, 18 out of 29, it's 62% of the teams. So I think progress right now for Austin FC, and last night was good. And look, they got 2 goals in, I think, the first 36, 37 minutes. They were quality goals, one off a corner and one off a nice transitional moment that led to a cross and a wonderful finish. So, you only can position it as a positive. Now, I saw a nice crowd in Austin. Where I was in Houston, there may have been 1,000 people.
Really?
So, it was a little, yes, there was a little difference in the attendance, and these are 2 very different MLS markets right now.
And Glenn, I would also say so now there'll be a redraw, right, for the round of 16 coming up for this for Open Cup. And so for folks who don't know how all of that'll work now, I mean, I think folks are used to seeing historically, even if they've just dabbled in their soccer knowledge, to see how a World Cup draw works when that happens, and that's very celebrated, much like the NFL schedule release will be nationally televised tonight. Imagine that.
Yes.
But
isn't nationally televised when it comes to the NFL?
Yeah,
right?
No doubt about that. But there'll be a redraw, right? A draw for the round of 16 now for the Open Cup.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct. It should happen today, actually, at some point. I don't know if it's been completed or not. But, look, it's a great tournament. It's an opportunity for coaches to give opportunity to others, guys coming back from injury. And, look, at the end of the day, you're playing for a trophy. And it really comes down to the coach as to how they prioritize it in the context of a long Major League Soccer season. Some teams you'll see will take more risk when it comes to the type of lineup they field. But most of the time, it's usually pretty mixed until you get to the latter stages.
All right. So before I let you go, we have to tell the story of 1995 indoor. For folks who Glenn not only is an outstanding broadcaster and an expert on the outdoor game, he also could really analyze what was going on the indoor game. And I did the Dallas Sidekicks either on radio or television for 9 years. And as part of that, I got the opportunity, and it's one of the thrills. I tell people that when people ask me, thrills my broadcast career, obviously the Rose Bowl with Vince Young scoring, that's always going to rank up there. And then 2 College World Series national championships and Final Fours for Texas men's and women's basketball in a 24-hour period in 2003. All of that goes without saying. We know that. But there are some other thrills that I've had. I mentioned getting to broadcast the quarterfinal match of the 94 World Cup with Gordon Jago, the longtime Dallas Sidekicks head coach, when we did it between Brazil and Holland, Brazil and the Netherlands in the Cotton Bowl in 94, a fabulous 3-2 match. What
a game, and what a great man to be doing it with Gordon Jago, by the way.
It's one of my all-time favorite moments in broadcasting. Now, I also have to say that one of my all-time favorite moments was 1 year later, 1995. Glenn Davis and I are selected to go down and broadcast the final game of the Indoor Soccer League Championship, which for years was known as MISL. I think it was called MSL then when you and I went and did it.
No, or Continental. No, I think it was the Continental Indoor
You're
Soccer
right.
League.
The CISL. You're exactly right. Continental Indoor Soccer League. So we go down. Sacramento is playing Monterrey, La Raza, and it's in the Monterrey Arena. And we go down there. Now, Glenn, as you've already heard, is a well-traveled international guy. I'd been out of the United States 3 or 4 times, but not very far. And Monterey is not that far away. It's only about 100 or 200 miles south of Laredo anyway. But we fly down there, and we have a car pick us up at the airport. And so Glenn and I are thinking, okay, we got time to get to the hotel, relax, change, and then the match is that night. And we're told, no, the commissioner wants to have lunch with you. And we're like, okay. And so
you remember he was raving about one dish, carne seca.
That's it.
I mean, it wasn't like, hey, guys, how are you? Hey, you got to try the carne seca.
I was trying to remember that to tell Linda last night, and I couldn't remember what the dish was. Okay, carne seca. Okay. So it's okay, all right, fine. And so he was more interested in the lunch itself than talking about the match.
Yeah, it was like, Ron, we got a championship game tonight. Is there anything else to talk about other than carne seca?
We get into the arena, and it's a very small arena. It's maybe 7,000, but the dimensions, and you pointed out immediately, these aren't real full indoor soccer league dimensions. In other words, you couldn't play a hockey game in there like most soccer matches. Indoor soccer was done in the hockey arenas. so you could do it. This was a much tighter dimensions. And you pointed out earlier, you said this is going to favor La Raza certainly playing here. But the other thing that stood out to us was the ever-present cumulus cloud of cigarette smoke that just permeated the entire arena. And during timeouts, you had young ladies holding up like you would see at a boxing match with like round girls that will walk up with a card and say 6 round. No, they're holding up cigarette ads, and they're tossing cartons of cigarettes into the stands. Kids are grabbing them there, and you and I are just looking at each other going, we're really here?
And that's when cigarette sponsors. It was like being at a cockfight, in the Caribbean. It was just very different, very cool though in its own way.
It was, and then afterwards we get invited to a party over at this estate, and we're driven over there, and these iron gates open up. If you've ever seen The Godfather Part 2, and you see Michael Corleone's compound, or in Scarface, the compound. That's the type of thing we were in. Gates closed behind us, armed guards all around us. And you looked at me and said, are we safe here? I said, I think we're safe here as long as we're guests or whatever. So it was bizarre, but I always remember that. You and I had a lot of fun doing soccer, but that seems to stand out as much as anything.
But those are the experience in this game. Some of my greatest experiences, even though I've called games in Europe, have been in Central America, and they're also educational in a way that, you realize maybe how fortunate you are, how different things are. But that was a lot of fun. La Raza won that. Remember, La Raza had a German coach, Eric Geyer.
Yeah.
Who was this really autocratic, fiery German guy. Great guy, Eric Geyer. And, that little arena you were mentioning, I remember saying to you, I said, watch this, La Raza, these guys shoot when they get to the halfway line. Because it was just, there was no such thing as standardization of arenas back in the day in that league. That's for sure.
It was great. And we remember the primitive equipment. We were wearing like half headsets and holding stick mics.
We were sat right in with the fans, Craig, if you remember. I had people throwing popcorn, and we had Dan Quartermanch next to us too.
Yeah.
From the league, who was a PR guy who's now with MLS. And we were sat, they just cleared a couple of spaces out in the middle of the crowd.
Let me tell you something, GD. What you just described, that's what I just had 2 weeks ago in Fort Worth doing baseball at TCU. What you just described.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah. You're out amongst the fans there. Yeah. So, but
they're all listening to what you're saying too, right?
Yeah, they are going around. What are you doing here? You Texas guys need to go home. Fortunately, the Longhorns played well enough where they kept kind of quiet during the weekend.
Here's a good one. I've called games in the LA Coliseum with Barcelona and Real Madrid, 80, 90,000 people. I've also called a USC women's game in there where they had a little table in the LA Memorial Coliseum. The whole place is empty except for about 20 parents who are huddling next to us to try and listen to what we're hearing.
That's great. And you've had larger crowds than that over at Mike A. Myers when you're doing Texas women's soccer for Longhorn Network.
Oh, we get some good crowds over there. We get some nice 2,000-3,000 people there. They do a really nice job of promoting it. And, Longhorns are a really fun team to watch now under Angela Kelly and Trinity Byers, Lexi Missimo. I mean, they're pulling in another good recruiting class, so it's going to be another great year.
No doubt.
For them, and let's see how deep they can go in the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely. Hey, it's always great to visit with you. We'll make it more regular as we go throughout the course of the season here and talk some more Austin FC as we go forward. But I really appreciate you taking the time. And again, folks can hear you on Monday night on Soccer Matters, right?
Yep, 7 o'clock Central Time. You can hit me up on Twitter at Glenn Davis Sock. By the way, you need to come on. You need to come on my show one night too, and very soon, Craig.
Done. We'll do it. Thank you, GD. I appreciate it.
Do I have to call your people?
No, I am my people. we're set.
Very good. Frank, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Glenn. That's Glenn Davis. Soccer Matters, Monday night at 7 o'clock here on the Horn. All right, late to the break. When we come back, we'll check in with Andrew Haynes live to talk some Texas softball as they get ready for the Big 12 tournament when we continue with Light the Tower on the Horn. If you, in listening to that conversation I had with Glenn Davis, if you discern nothing else from that, you discern the fact that I'm probably getting up there in age a little bit. And whether you are or whether you're just not feeling exactly how you should be feeling, why not get a wellness visit from our friends at Total Men's Primary Care? Because they can handle so many different things. They were big on the front lines for COVID testing. But if you're, interested in medical weight loss or say management of diabetes, maybe it's a low T issue as well. Whatever it might be, they can help you with it. And all you have to do is go to TotalMens.com. You'll see a yellow button that says book an appointment in the upper right corner. You click on that button, and then you can put down in specific what you want to. They have a drop-down menu. If you want to be tested for low T, you can click on that. If you want to get condition management, you can do that as well. There's so many different options to you there. But go to TotalMens.com. You'll see what I'm talking about. Total Men's Primary Care, the doctor's office just for men.
As it was, then again it will be. Though the course may change sometimes, the rivers always reach the sea. Blind skies of fortune, each have separate ways.
This is Live at the Tower on the Horn, 104.9, 101.9 AM 1260. We are due and I'll just leave it at that. We're due to check in with Andrew Haynes from the Hall of Fame Stadium complex in Oklahoma City, site of the 2023 Big 12 Softball Championship. What Andrew has communicated to us is they are having connectivity issues, not with our equipment. It's just they're having problems at the ballpark right now. There is also, I would say, they are running relatively close to on time because the first game is underway right now, and it's in the top of the 6th inning with Iowa State leading Baylor 3-0. And that's the matchup of the 4 and the 5 seed. Iowa State's the 5, Baylor's the 4. And just looking at the line score on this, Iowa State's pitcher, Spellhog, is throwing a no-hitter. Yeah, they're in the Iowa State's batting right now, and they've scored a run in the top of the 6th, and they're up 3-0. And right now, it's Ellie Spellhog, Spelhaug. Ellie Spellhog is spinning a no-hitter right now, go through 5 innings. So Texas is due to play Texas Tech in the game that will follow. That's the 2 seed against the 7 seed, and that is scheduled for 12:30, which you can hear on 105.3. Hopefully, connectivity issues notwithstanding, hopefully that'll all be ironed out by then. So they're working through saying, and this is the big, it's the USA Softball Hall of Fame Stadium. Andrew's done several games there. He did, obviously, in the College World Series last year when Texas got to the championship round. Earlier this year, the first of the 3 games with top-ranked and defending national champion and this year's Big 12 champion, Oklahoma, they won 41 in a row, I think, overall. And that was after they had an early season loss to Baylor. But so he's done several games there, and I've done games there in the Women's College World Series when Texas was there, when Kat Osterman was pitching in the 2000s, and it's a big complex, and they have lots of booths and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, they're trying to sort through all of that right now. So why don't we, without further ado, jump into our Longhorn Notebook, and if we do. To get in touch. Andrew said he would let you know, right? If he's able to get connected. They're still working on the issue there to try to get that done. So in the meantime, we bring you the notebook. And like we said, Texas softball due to play Texas Tech. That's at 12:30 coming up. And you can hear that on 105.3 The Bat. Now, Longhorn baseball is due to play San Jose State this weekend. This is each team in the Big 12 Conference has 2, not 1, but 2 open dates on the conference schedule. And Texas had one early. Remember when they played New Orleans? That was during an open date weekend early in Big 12 Conference play. And then the other one is late in the season. Normally, the open date in conference play for the Longhorns comes during final exam week. But if you were listening this morning, and we've talked about it on the air. Keith Moreland and I were talking about it on the air last weekend from Lawrence, Kansas. This spring semester, in terms of its calendar, was unlike any I can ever remember at the University of Texas. It started like a couple of weeks early. And David Pierce was on this morning, if you heard Bucky and Aaron talking about that, because they started so early. They finished early. They finished, I think, May 1st. And so they're done with the semester. They had graduation last weekend. Now, there were several Longhorn players who, of course, were in Kansas, and so they did not participate in the commencement itself. They did not put on the cap and gown. It was a really cool moment when Cameron Rupp, yes, the same one, he of the prodigious clout, home run in 2009, the home run that tied the game against Arizona State in Omaha, and then Connor Rowe came up right behind him and hit the walk-off to get Texas to the national championship. But Rupp, returning as a student assistant coach, and went down to breakfast Saturday morning in his cap and gown in Lawrence, Kansas. That was really cool, and the players got all excited. But there were several players who got an opportunity to earn their degrees, but they were up in Kansas. The other night, Hardball Hodge, Mike was working with me on the broadcast, and he was visiting with Porter Brown after the game. Porter was awarded his degree on Saturday, but of course he was with the team. And Mike asked him out. He said, "Hey, I've had an opportunity to take part in commencement up at TCU, and you know that." He said, "I felt bad for some of the other guys who didn't get to, but we were all excited for Cameron." Tanner Carlson was one of them. Sam Walbridge, Zane Morehouse, just to name a few of several of the Longhorn players who are now college graduates as a result of that. Also, a couple of guys from last year's team, Coy Cobb, Cole Quintanilla, got a chance, and they were part of it. So congratulations to all of those guys. But, of course, now they're at the time of the year when, you know, when you've got all of these games and practices, and there's only 6 games remaining in the regular season. But then they go up, after the 6 games, 3 this weekend, hopefully, scheduled, weather permitting, against San Jose State, and then 3 the following weekend against West Virginia to wrap up Big 12 Conference regular season play. And then it's up to Arlington for the Big 12 tournament. Then it's NCAA regionals, and, you know, depending on if you win, you keep playing, that sort of thing. But it's all baseball and, you know, living on per diem in baseball pretty much this time of year. Check of the RPI this morning. Because we got a question earlier about whether, you know, if one or more of the games are unable to be played against San Jose State due to the weather, would that help or hurt the RPI? And I would say that it certainly wouldn't hurt, might not help, but Texas is 25 in the RPI right now. And you say, the big deal about the RPI. The RPI is not the factor in basketball that it is in baseball. In basketball, they go by net rankings now, and there's other criteria. But baseball, it's still a very important evaluative tool used by the tournament selection committee. And Texas today is 25 in the RPI. Let me also tell you that Texas State is 37 and moving up. Now, they're either going to get some help on that, or they're really going to be in trouble at the end of that in terms of any kind of at-large hopes they might have after this weekend, because they're playing Louisiana, and it's a road series at Louisiana. Louisiana's 81 in the RPI, and that's not bad on the RPI, but to the extent that Texas State can really help itself if they have a successful weekend series in Lafayette. So if they do that, they'll help themselves. The Longhorns may not help themselves that much with wins in the RPI, certainly would not hurt themselves. And that was one thing that David Pierce told us the other night in the postgame. San Jose State today is 130 in the RPI. He said if you're inside of 150, you don't hurt yourself by playing them as long as you win. You might not get much of a bump, but you won't go backward. You won't get a loss off of that. But if you lose, then obviously you take a hit. But at this time of year, this is the second open date that has rolled around for Texas, and all the schools went through that. Oklahoma State just got through playing back-to-back open dates. They went to Michigan and played 2 of the 3 games. They got 1 rained out at Ann Arbor. And then last weekend swept East Tennessee State at home. They've got a huge conference series this weekend against Kansas State. So these are the other things that affect Texas in terms of baseball this weekend. West Virginia, who is 18 in the RPI, West Virginia is hosting Texas Tech this weekend. Tech in the RPI is 51 after taking their 2 games from Abilene Christian the other night. So that's a big weekend series there in Morgantown. The other one, Oklahoma State and Kansas State. And that's very important. Oklahoma State today in the RPI is, I want to make sure I pull this up. Well, you got to be higher than that. Oklahoma's like number 33. I'm just missing them here. But they are they're 21. Yeah, I knew they were up higher than Texas in the RPI. Kansas State is 55. So there's 2 big series there. Then you have Dallas Baptist, who is just ahead of Texas, below them, 1 spot below them at 26. And they're playing UTSA, who's been really good this year and had a very respectable RPI throughout the course of the season. And that's a huge series this weekend between UTSA and Dallas Baptist, and they're 54 in the RPI. So those are three big series with regard to the national scene of the RPI and how some of the outside factors may affect Texas more so than playing San Jose State. But they will play San Jose State, weather permitting, starting tomorrow night, 6:30, Saturday afternoon, 2:30, Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock. All right, we'll be back to wrap up today's edition of Light the Tower on the Horn.
Whether it's basketball playoffs, hockey playoffs, Major League Baseball, college baseball, maybe you just want to get ready for football season, make sure your entertainment setup at home is exactly the way you want it. And if it's not, just get in touch with Tom McKay and our good friends at AV Consultations. 512-255-8678. 255-8678 is the number you need to call. It's one of the best calls I've ever made. I was watching some of those playoff basketball games last night on a 75-inch LG TV. The sound, crystal clear. Great sound with that Sonos sound system. Tom McKay and AV Consultations. They keep the latest smart TVs and Sonos audio in stock. And if they don't have it, I've seen Tom McKay do it. He can get it, bam, in the blink of an eye. No problem at all if he doesn't have something in stock that you want and or need. So if you want that same setup like I've got with a 75-inch TV, they can obviously make that happen and do a nice, clean, professional setup at your house. Maybe you don't have that much room. Maybe you need something smaller. It's no problem. They can accommodate that. Or if you've got enough room to put a full tilt home theater experience in your house, get you a 150-inch screen. I know Tom McKay and his guys would love to make that happen for you. Whatever your needs are, just let Audio Visual Consultations take care of it. 512-255-8678. That's 255-8678. Let Tom McKay and Audio Visual Consultations help you realize the home entertainment setup of your dreams.
things before we let you go. While it was unfortunate we weren't able to connect with Andrew Haynes, thanks to Alex Love from Longhorn Network, who texted me to say, just a heads up, the Baylor-Iowa State game has gone into a lightning delay. So the Texas Tech game is probably going to get pushed back. And we mentioned that the no-hitter that was being pitched by the Iowa State pitcher at the time as well. So it's scheduled for a 12:15 airtime. In other words, 15 minutes from now, but might be later than that. So stay tuned. It'll be on 105.3 The Bat. Stay tuned here on The Horn. Up next, Chad and Zay. For a man behind the glass, Cameron Parker, I'm Craig Way. Thanks for joining us. We'll visit with you tomorrow, 10 o'clock, right here on Light the Tower.